destroy the child, corrupt them all.
What do you want to start with? You want to start with Turkey or you want to start with Saudi Arabia? It's pretty fun either way.
Well, I think it's important to clarify so far what we know about the Iranian tanker incident and what we don't know.
So,
Because,
the preliminary reports, which are never reliable,
of course,
was something happened to an Iranian tanker. I think I named it Treadmill Carries Texas Tea with Jafar or something. Where it started spilling oil into the Red Sea, and there were 2 explosions on the ship. And speculation was, well, did Saudi Arabia hit it with missiles or torpedoes or mines? Or is there another explanation? It's a little bit suspicious because if Saudi Arabia is going to pull the trigger, why not hit all the boats? Why would you hit one boat and not even sink it?
Yeah, such a petty attack that would lead to a massive retaliation because that's the way Iranians do it. Now, look, first thing to clarify again is, one thing with the Iranian news claims is you definitely got to give it at least 2 days before you start being able to get a settled story, right? The truth begins to settle amongst all the confusion of things. Now, I will note that Press TV, last I checked a few hours ago, Press TV had not done a fresh article on the Iranian tanker incident in 22 hours, which means that the news is dying off on it, and the reason why is officials have backpedaled on the missile story. That's the first thing. It's also become apparent, and I checked this with Robert Inlakesh, who works for Press TV in London. He works for their London office. I checked this with him. When the first article started coming out, they showed pictures of a tanker on fire in the distance. That is actually a stock picture that they were using. That was not actually a picture
on
of the
Press
ship.
TV or RT?
Yeah. No, just in general. When all these articles started getting released, it was a stock picture showing from a distance a tanker on fire. Now, the ship, and Robert Inlakesh of Press TV in London actually said this to me, there were 2 explosion-like events, but there was no fire. The hull was compromised. Yeah, there was no fire. This is the thing. There was no fire. The hull was compromised, and there was an oil leak. Within hours, the crew on board the ship, just with their limited resources, managed to patch up the damage, and the ship was moving again within hours. So, and currently it's heading for the Bab al-Mandab.
Let me point out something obvious, because I don't know if people caught it. If there's no fire, if there was some sort of pressure explosion from the boiler room or whatever, versus a missile, mine, torpedo, you name it, is going to have, thank you, Vinny, a fireball, which the crew, even if it came in so fast they didn't see it, whatever, they will notice that, right? Kaboom, incinerate devices. If there's no fire, that would lend more credibility to an internal problem of the ship. Man, we'll just keep getting done. And it is reasonable to assume foul play because in the not too recent past, it's been Iranian oil tankers that have been seized by the British, for example. All
there's tension. There's reason.
Can't send oil to Syria. They're doing it anyway. So it is not implausible to say, oh, they shot at it or whatever.
Yep. Well, here's the thing. As I've said before, a military attack leaves a signature, right? It leaves fragments. It leaves a missile motor. It leaves serial number. It leaves a piece of shrapnel with a serial number. A lot to indicate that a munition was used. Now, if this was the case, and I will state this, that officially, something's happening.
Shit, he called this. So Robert in the catch was saying there was no fire. And you were saying if there's no fire, then what's the explanation of 2 explosions? The initial report said they are 20 to 30 minutes apart.
Yeah.
That might not be true either. I don't know. Well, I actually do, but for audience sake, that's the initial report. Is that true? Were there explosions 20 minutes apart? And if there were, what other causes could there be other than sabotage?
It looks like without going into the specifics of what could have caused an internal explosion, because there's one theory, it's the boiler, okay, which could cause an explosion, which could compromise the hull, which could not lead to a fire, even though the initial release of pressure could compromise the hull and lead to an oil spill. The point, it looks like that this was not an external attack that damaged the ship. It looks like it was something from the inside, which leaves it possible that it could have been a bomb on the inside, but then again, a bomb would have still have led to a fire, especially since there are a million barrels of oil on this ship. It cannot be forgotten. Right? And the compartment that holds the oil was compromised. One of the main compartments which holds oil was in fact compromised, but there was a spill of oil but no fire, and a conventional explosion, either by like a terrorist bomb on the inside or by missiles, especially 2 missiles
or torpedo,
reportedly, right, or a torpedo or something, 2 munitions would definitely have led to a fire, but there was no fire. Okay,
there's no incendiary weapon that doesn't have fire, is there?
Yeah,
unless you just shoot an old school cannonball or something like, and the way the way the oil is transported is with 0 oxygen. So the hull is full of oil. To get a fire going, you have to have oxygen. So even if there's like a puncture or something to the tank, all that's going to do is have the pressure shoot the oil out. It's not going to combust until there's oxygen and heat. And the only way you can have both is if some projectile or whatever sets it off. If a boiler would blow up or something internal, there's no combustion because you'd have the pressure. After it broke, you'd have the oxygen, but you wouldn't have the heat. So what we saw was boom, boom, no fire, which would lead us to believe there was a problem with the ship. Now, you could still sabotage a ship, like to break the boiler room or whatever, I guess. But it's such a silly and stupid of incentive and with no real results and so much risk that that's pretty much dismissed, I would say.
Well, again, it seems the initial story, because within 24 hours, Iran, including a number of officials which have since backpedaled, were saying, it was a rocket attack. It came from Jeddah. Well, it came from Saudi Arabia in the direction of Jeddah because the ship was opposite the port city of Jeddah at the time, more or less opposite, about 60 miles away from it. And so, again, there was just all this initial hype that does not seem to be justified now because Iranian officials have since backpedaled from the rocket story. Some have upheld that it's probably an attack, but they've backpedaled still from the idea that it was missiles or rockets or anything like that, right? Or they haven't said torpedo yet. Some open source Twitter accounts immediately blamed Israel.
Like, what about water mines?
Okay, what's important to understand here? What's important to understand here? If it was some kind of munition, and there were 2 of them, we would have had a fire. 2, the ship probably would have sunk or at least been stranded in the middle of the water. Instead, we have a scenario where there was no fire, okay? And to go with that, the crew, with their limited resources on board the ship, managed to patch up the damage and the oil spill, and the ship has since continued south to exit the Red Sea through the Bab al-Mandal. In fact,
and they were 60 miles away from Jeddah. Is that accurate?
Longer, further
than 60 miles. No Mirage Truth or No Mirage TV just sent some shekels. I saw the animation for a second.
On here, look, again, an attack with some kind of conventional munition, like a torpedo or a mine or missiles, especially missiles, it would leave it would leave fragments. It would leave shrapnel. It would leave a piece of engine from the munition. Okay, because munitions have to be propelled, especially if it's a claimed missile attack. There would be, and Iranian TV would be parading this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, it would have left a fire. The ship, at the very least, would have been stranded, dead in the water, if not sunk. Okay, neither of that happened. Within hours, the oil spill was contained, the hull was repaired enough that the ship could continue on its journey, and there was no extensive damage to the ship's propulsion systems. So it has continued on its journey since. They say, Iranian officials have since said, backing off from the claims of the rocket attack, they have since said the ship is due to arrive in Iran in the next 10 days, where they're going to conduct a full investigation. What is worth noting...
was it en route to Syria to deliver this oil?
No, this is not related to Syria.
Because that doesn't make sense, because it's in the Red Sea and they'd have to go through the Suez Canal. So
yeah, this was probably... Understand, this is Iranian tankers, because of the sanctions. Iranian tankers spend most of their journeys to their illegal destinations with their trackers off.
Right.
Okay? Right? They turn it on briefly for a few hours, showing themselves going in one direction, and then they'll turn it off for days and then appear in a completely different direction in a location that wasn't expected. Like, that is normal for Iranian tankers. But this was not... It's fully laden. It has 1 million barrel, not 1 million litres, 1 million barrels of oil on it. It is still fully laden. There was a spill, but it's been contained. God bless you, Non-Mirage. Says, support ANC, click like and share. So,
I agree with that, but I'm biased.
But yeah, we haven't forgot your questions. We'll get round to the Kurds and Turkey and the current situation over there. Now, I have to say, let's continue waiting. Let's see what Iranian investigators say in 2 weeks from now. If the ship is going to reach in the next 10 days, they'll do an investigation over a number of days. They'll try to reach their conclusion on what happened, right? The Iranian Foreign Office is still upholding, the Foreign Ministry is still upholding the line that this is dangerous adventurism by whoever did it. So they've actually backed off specifically blaming Saudi Arabia. That's the second thing to note. They've stopped directly blaming Saudi Arabia. They said whoever did this is engaging in dangerous adventurism. And on top of that, they've backed off from the missile attack claim, right? So we will see what is the case in the next 2 weeks, but it really is looking more and more and like it's really looking more and more like the situation, like Iran. I don't think this was an attack. Basically, it looks like that right now. This was not an attack. Otherwise, Iranian media would be releasing a new article about this every minute of every hour for days to come, and they haven't. In fact, Iranian media has almost gone completely quiet on the subject after the third round of reports, which dropped the Saudi accusation and which also dropped, for the most part, the missile attack accusation. They dropped it down. The most zealous news sites dropped it down to possibly missiles, right? And the other ones just dropped the claim completely. So we will see, but it does not look like an attack. And if, by Saudi Arabia...
Let me say this. If you're going to shoot missiles, right, that's such an overt, obvious thing, right?
Yes, it leaves a
you're not going to
signature.
shoot them from over 60 miles away in Jeddah. You'd shoot them from an adjacent ship, or you'd torpedo it with submarines or whatever, if you want plausible deniability. If you are going to shoot missiles from a distance, you're basically saying, here I am, MFer, this is a declaration of war. Even Saudi Arabia is not stupid enough to waste their first strike capacity on a single ship that they didn't even sink. If you were going to do a surprise, MFer, here come the missiles, you're going to hit all the boats, all your targets all at once. Right?
Well, you certainly think that's what you do. And the thing
well,
is,
that
it
would be
doesn't
the
matter.
smart thing to
doesn't
do,
matter
which
if
they aren't. But you're
to be
definitely not going to shoot an oil tanker and not even get the job done.
And
woo, Yasa's in the house. Hold on, I'm going to Ric Flair. I'll Ric Flair you for that, Yasa. Ready?
Now, there are a number of questions. We've seen them, and we'll get round to answering them, so just stick with us. We just got to...
Yeah,
Andrew,
I like the first one.
Destroy the child. Corrupt them all.